back to the channel. Today is the 18th of August, 2020. I'm here in the studio workspace of a fellow artist in the Iowa area, in the town that I grew up in, Brando.
What's up?
Brando actually happens to be my cousin. I thought this would be a great place for the artist to turn the table, and instead of being interview another artist, starting with a family member, because Brando and I both come from a family that has both artists and entrepreneurs. And we were talking about this yesterday, where we were discussing the fact that it's highly unusual for both of those traits to be passed down, and yet we both seem to be captured by the artistic need to create, yet at the same time the compulsion to be self-driven and self-directed.
Right.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk to Brando, get an idea of where he started, what his inspirations were. I did a video trace around his space. It's a fantastic workspace. He has so much pop culture memorabilia. You'll see in a minute how that's playing into the work that he's doing, and we're going to look at some of the work he's doing, and because it's an interesting crossover, because we both have seemed to have found a place in our careers where people are beginning to take notice of the work that we're doing and exchange us their money for our wares, which is the end goal of independent artists.
Right.
So not only do we come from the same family, have the same entrepreneurial / creative need, but we're also both finding our stride at the same time, despite the fact that there's about 10 years in between us, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and we're both old.
Yeah. AF.
It's a little late in the game, but whatever. What else am I going to do?
Exactly. In 5 years, it's just going to be 5 years later. We can either spend those 5 years creating and building an audience, or we can bitch about it, and 5 years later we'll be nowhere. Same spot, nowhere.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Brando, why don't you talk a little bit about your early inspirations, and like what were some of the things that got you into art? Like what was
Comic books.
Great place.
Comic books, always. Comic books and graffiti are my biggest influences.
Yeah, absolutely.
They because I feel that both the styles are very vast, and you can pull off any look with either one of those styles.
Yeah.
And still be in the same
genre.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are my main influences.
Right, because my brother collected comic books, and I think you got one of his first.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Your sister gave me a bunch, which I still have on one of my shelves.
Right. You said that was the first one where Wolverine
and Sabretooth.
Yeah.
Wolverine number 10, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I wasn't into the comic book thing when I was growing up. Steve was.
Right.
But for me, comic books weren't like, I mean, I got it and I appreciated the visual aspect of it.
Right.
But as a pop culture magnet, it didn't really draw me in. And honestly, it wasn't until the last couple of years where graffiti art really started to become...
It's become a hot... The trend, it's starting to trend. It really is.
The fantastic thing is, and I'm jumping around a little bit here, but you know, I just recently got back from a trip to Portland. Oh, not Portland. I'm sorry. To a trip. I just recently got back from a trip to the Bay Area.
Right.
And San Francisco, Oakland area was hot for a lot of the protests.
Right.
Well, Oakland, and everything was shut down, so we almost had like a free reign of the city. We could just walk around empty streets. Oakland has a huge number, and I showed you some of those images. Of the wall art, the murals, because the climate is so dry and arid there that it rarely rains. It's only 2 months a year it rains. So these murals that are 5, 6, 8 stories high are just as good today as they were 30 years ago.
And sometimes those are vinyl wraps, and you don't even realize it.
Really?
Really.
That's that's phenomenal. Well, the other thing is that, and this is what I really found fascinating, was that, you know, you had all these sanctioned murals, right? Because the owners of the building or the city would say, hey, we want a mural. A local prominent mural artist would bid for the job, and he'd have a team of people erect the mural, and it would stay for 2-3 generations. On top of that, then you also had the protest art. which
Right.
all the business owners put these 4x8 sheets of 3/4 ply so their windows would
Right.
get smashed out, and all these graffiti artists came along and said, "Hey, free canvas."
Oh yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Graffiti. My influence from graffiti comes when we lived in L.A. in the late '80s.
So talk about that. So you were a young kid. I remember when you
We
were
moved
around.
out there in '86. I was like third grade.
Yeah.
So I was like 8, 9.
Yeah.
Somewhere, yeah, I was 8 or 9. And we moved to Venice area.
Okay.
And basically, it was, that was Dogtown. That's where we lived, was Dogtown. And that was where, skateboarding birthed. Like the Zephyr Boys.
Yeah.
Like skateboarding birthed there. And then when I lived there, actually, the Tony Hawk Bones Brigade era was going on. I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? So, like, there was there was a lot of graffiti. The urban landscape, I don't know, man. It just kind of stuck with me. I have a love for the culture, the urban city culture, and even the gang graffiti and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just the TV show Gangland. Seen it all. I love that show.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, just from going to school in the late '80s, that's it stuck with me. So the graffiti style, definitely, you can see it in my art. Especially my personal stuff.
And we'll see that in a second, in a
Right.
minute. But then you also got into tattoo. Now, I mean, you have a
Right.
couple of tattoos, but you also have a friend who's a brilliant tattoo
Yeah,
artist.
phenomenal.
And we'll put up a couple. We get permission from him, but if he
Yeah,
gives
he
us
won't care.
permission,
He won't
we'll put up a couple images of his work.
Yeah.
I saw some of his stuff last night. Blew my mind. I mean, I appreciate these things because stylistically they're not things that I'm predisposed to do,
Right.
but I still have a profound appreciation.
Well, yeah. Everybody's looks at everything differently.
Yeah.
And his realism is.
Well, like we talked about, he does fantasy
Yeah,
so well.
Yeah, he's phenomenal at it.
And to do it on skin.
Yeah. He's I mean, I tattooed. He started tattooing in, his house on me and some of our buddies. Probably, I want to say, late 90s, early 2000s. He tattooed out of his mom's house. I was in graphic design school locally here in town, and that was like early graphic design school, like before everything was straight digital to press. So we learned ancient technology, not ancient really,
Well,
but
no, out of seriously out of date technology.
yeah. Well, your dad worked at International Paper, and he was in the plate room.
Right.
So when I started college, my first year was we learned how to make plates, negatives, work with a dark room, and then
So you did strip up.
made imposition stuff like that, with acetate and razor blades and taking photos of stuff and all that, so you can make plates for the printing press because everything was CMYK, and that's how basically how they still print newspaper is how everything used to run.
Right.
Well, then the next year everything was digital.
That was
They
the
got rid of
transition.
that was the transition.
And everything was Mac. Did you use Mac?
I learned on Mac, and I'm still not a fan of Mac to this day.
Well,
honestly.
I don't think I have a single Apple product.
Not one.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah.
I don't. There was always problems in the Mac lab, but to each their own. People like Mac, but at the time, the high-end Mac was a G5,
Okay.
and it was $5,000.
Yeah.
And there's no way that I could have afforded that coming out of college.
Right.
But anyway, coming out of college, then I decided I wanted to tattoo, so I started hanging out at the tattoo shop more.
So let's take a second and talk about, like, we were talking about this the other day, how as artists there's an inherent appreciation of line and shape and contour and
Right,
color.
right.
And it is like just atavistic. It's in our bones.
Right.
So talk to me about how, like, tattooing started to open that door for you for your own personal expression, and what some of those early experiences were like for you.
Tattoo was just about art. It was just me and my buddy Adam. Like, we would draw all the time together. We'd just hang out and just draw. Drawing just anything all the time. That's how we really connected. And him just tattooing made me want to tattoo. I wanted to see if I could do it.
Okay.
And when my last semester of graphic design school, I had to get a internship, job, and I got on at a just starting graphic or screen printing shop.
Okay.
And that's where my love for Corel Draw, or use for Corel Draw, came into effect. That's because Corel Draw is a industry standard for screen printing. A lot of screen printers use Corel Draw.
Do they still use that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Like AdCraft, they use Corel Draw, which is a local screen printer, but they're big time. They do Iowa Hawkeye stuff. They do their bowl game uniforms and stuff like that. They're a huge company now, but they use Corel Draw. So I don't use industry standard stuff in my design work, but I've taught myself how to adapt and overcome, man.
Yeah.
Adapt and overcome.
So some of those early experiences, what was that like for you? Finally having a tool or a mechanism through which you could explore something that was yours and yours alone. What was that like?
It was fun. I loved it. I spent all my time doing it. There was a portion of my life where I took like 8 years of just fine-tuning and learning business tactics and just learning. Consuming knowledge was a big part of my life, and I love it. I pushed myself as hard as I could, taught myself how to do websites just out of necessity. Just as much progression as I can keep pushing. I'm a perfectionist, so I have to keep pushing and learning new things and learning ways to do things faster, and I love it.
Okay.
Now, I was really horrible, really, really horrible. Like, you're talking like 2000, I graduated 2002.
Yeah, that was the year I came back to Iowa.
Yeah, I was done with 98 to 2000. No, I graduated in 2000.
Okay.
So 2000, I was done with graphic design school and went right into tattooing.
Okay.
Because there wasn't really any jobs. I still worked at the screen printing shop.
Right.
And a lot of that was, hey man, can you rebuild this logo on a business card?
And is that how you got into logos? Because I know the logos is also part of something that you've done.
Yeah.
And that's where you got into it.
That's where I learned the basics of the point-click mouse building vector program.
Okay.
And that's like fine-tune my skills over the years, hand tracing with the mouse on, a business card. Because most people don't have vector files of their artwork
right
for production. They might nowadays, but back then nobody had it.
Right, and if the larger you blow it up, the more pixelated it becomes.
You can't really burn it in on emulsion anyway, because the edges will be too fuzzy and it'll look like crap.
Right.
Right.
Which gets to the point. I mean, and this is neither here nor there, but most people really have no clue about how much work goes into good design. I mean, and I think this is one of those things that holds true with a lot of industries, where the more effortless you can make it look, the more work went into it.
Right. Yeah. I'm 20 years ago. I've been doing this 20 years, so 15 years ago, it would take me a week to do a logo.
And you were just saying the other day, you got it down to from 1 week down to a day.
Yeah, I can get it done in a day.
Yeah. Now, it's not your favorite thing to do.
It just depends on the style logo, like minimalistic logo.
Oh, yeah.
Easily one day.
Right.
A lot of people sketch stuff out, but I've been doing this so long, I don't even sketch anything out. I sketch in Corel Draw, like just by putting shapes, boxes, tilting, just processing everything in my head while I just play around with shapes and fonts.
Yeah.
And it usually, I don't know, I've worked with so many clients throughout 20 years.
What were some of the highlights of those? Like, either web design or logo design.
I hate web design, but I do it.
Okay.
I hate it, but I do it because I have to.
Yeah.
But and now that, I mean, WordPress and the page builders that WordPress uses now, it makes it really easy. So now it's just kind of, I can flow through it really well. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
Oh, talk to me about some of the highlights.
Oh yeah, Mac Lethal, good. He's a
Yeah, I took a picture of that.
Yeah.
I'll put it up there.
yeah. I have. I can actually, give you files what they look like mocked up on T-shirts and stuff. I just printed those off so I can get signatures from him.
Okay.
He was at a show. He's a YouTube rapper.
Okay.
More than a YouTube rapper. He's a rapper, but he's super fast.
Okay.
And I've actually been a fan before. I got commissioned to do some work for him. One of my buddies tagged me in a Facebook post when he was looking for art, and then I just messaged him my website, upsidedownowl.com, and he commented back and said he wanted to work with me, and we've done I'm gonna say 3 t-shirt designs. Crazy ideas. That dude had the craziest ideas. Really hard
To visualize, to put into concept.
to execute.
Yeah.
To execute, and super short timelines.
Ah.
Super short timelines. Like,
Wow.
not intentional, I don't think, but you know how artists are. Some artists are all over the place,
Yeah.
and they finally get to a point where they're like, okay, I need it, and I need it right now. And
Right.
I have a lot of clients like that where it's like, can you get this to me in an hour? Which generally, that mermaid shirt, I worked on that 17 hours straight in a 24-hour period
To get it to the deadline.
to get it to the deadline.
Yeah.
And that was not even that long ago. That was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Which brings up, as a freelance artist, somebody who's like, I'd rather take the ups and the downs than to.
Oh, hell yeah.
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 I mean,
I'd rather live in a box than work at a factory.
Word.
I can't, dude.
No,
I can't. I'm
I have.
43.
I have. And
It's gotten close. It's gotten close, man. But you just got to keep pushing.
You do. I mean,
You got to keep That's the entrepreneurial aspect of the Price side. Our 2 uncles, and my father, he had the entrepreneurial spirit, but he couldn't get out of his own damn way.
That's
And
the trick.
I'm trying to get out of my own damn way. Now, I don't have the issues that he had, but I have laziness that I have to fight off. You know what I mean? And just blocks. Creative blocks are the worst. They are the worst.
I had one recently on a sculpture commission I had, and I realized it was tied to something that was a conflict between the person who established the commission
Yeah.
and myself, and I basically had to tell them that this is the way it was going to be, or I was going to return their money.
You have to.
Yeah. And then as soon as I did that, I finished the piece.
Yeah, the tattoo artist that we talked to, or we're talking about, Adam,
Yeah.
he got to a point where he doesn't do lettering anymore. He said, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm good at.
This is a really interesting point, because I think this is where people call artists arrogant, but I think that there's something pretty intrinsic that we understand that most people don't.
Right.
And that is, money is cheap,
Yeah.
right? And so let me back up for a second. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this, but this is central to what we're talking about right now. When I was in my undergrad, I went back to finish my undergrad when I was like 32 years old.
Right.
Right. So I'd left college, and then I went back in 2002. Came back, I should say, to Iowa to finish my undergrad, and I was like 32, 33 years old. And during that time, one of my drawing professors, because I was in the graphic design program,
Right.
I didn't like it.
Right.
And then I left, and when I came back, I said, screw graphic design, I'm not going to be very good at it. I recognize that limitation. Let me do fine art.
Right.
So I took drawing, and my drawing professor said, do you know what style is? I said, I've never been asked that question. What is style? He said, style is one person's unique set
Yep.
of flaws and fallibilities made manifest in whatever medium they use. Because if we're all perfect, everything would be a photograph and every sculpture would be an exact
Right.
copy.
That's boring.
And that's exactly the point.
That's
so
boring.
when you say, I love a person's style, what you're saying is, I love their idiosyncrasies.
Yep. Yep.
So the reality is, and this is what is confused as being arrogant or perceived as being egotistical. We, I think inherently, whether we verbalize it or not, recognize that while we're alive, that style will exist. And as soon as we're gone, that will never exist again in history.
Yeah, no, that's not true though.
I definitely believe that.
That our
Your
style is
Because-
specific to you.
The style specific to me will never exist again. Style specific to you will never exist again. The people may come close, but they're going to bring their own idiosyncratic.
Well, no, that's totally true. It's
yeah.
like a fingerprint, I suppose.
Exactly. So when
That's
people,
a logical way to look at it.
There you go. When people commission something, what I've come to do, and this took me a long time to understand, when people commission something, this is the power of the dynamic. Your money is cheap. Yes, I'd like to have that money so I can keep doing what I'm doing, but my style is irreplaceable.
Right. And I kind of am pigeonholed as, as far as what I do, the clientele that I get for my commercial art, which that's mostly what I do is commercial art.
Right.
I'm trying to make a move to produce as much of my own personal stuff that I can and document it, create content. That's my next move here. But commercial art, I definitely do have a clientele, and a lot of it is like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I know a guy that owns a school that I did a lot of stuff for, and then people started seeing all that stuff. So I've done UFC fighter shirts, T-shirts are like one of my big
Sellers.
That's what I have my portfolio consists of mostly T-shirt designs.
Okay.
Mostly.
So let's take a transition and move from. We've talked about your early years. We talked about you doing graphic design and your distaste, but your willingness to do web design, and then we started getting into like Mac Lethal and some of the graphic design work that you did. You've touched on that. Now let's transition and talk about how what you're doing now. With regards to these 24 by 24 inch drip paintings,
Yeah.
and how that ties in with your love of pop culture. Because, as I said to you the other day, I think that's a tremendous shtick that you have. Is that you have a terribly sharp wit, and you have your finger on the cultural pulse, and you can do work that's the work that you do is captivating, and it's compelling, because it's stuff that's in everybody's psyche.
Yeah, well, pop art is pop art. Like, I don't know. I like pop art. It's really. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the painting.
That's fine.
Because
Yeah,
I
we're
look
looking
at
at Ice Cube.
I look at Ice Cube, and I'm just like, man, it's just in your face
Attitude.
And okay, so I started making these stencils because my friend Bud Benson, he owns his own restaurant. He was just opening up his new one, and he wanted me to.
Right when COVID hit.
Yeah, right. This was right when COVID. When was that?
March.
Yeah, this year has been dragging on. It's like I'm beating the dead horse. Like, and beating 50 dead horses. I don't know. This year has been really weird. Yeah. But it has afforded me the luxury of time that I usually don't have.
Brilliant.
To explore other options. So my friend Bud wanted me to paint a giant mural inside of his business on his wall that said Benson's on the Mississippi, and I used some of my hand-drawn vector graphics that I have created. They're on my website just to
UpsideDownOwl.com.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but UpsideDownOwl.com.
Okay.
I sell vector packs for graphic designers to use because
Perfect.
I've kind of perfected a good illustrative style graphic design. I'm more than just a graphic designer. I'm an illustrator as well. I've just been drawing since I was 10 and combined everything into one. I would say I'm a mixed media designer.
Well, and you kind of have to be.
It's this age, you have to. I can't. So I lost my train of thought. So
talking about Benson's on the Mississippi.
Benson's on the Mississippi. So I said, okay, yeah, I'll paint this mural, right? I'll paint this, but you need to buy me the supplies. I'll do it for free. You buy the supplies. I have a vinyl plotter that I cut, vinyl stickers on. I do a lot of window installation, vehicle installation stuff. And I told him, buy me the material, I'll design it up, and I'll put it on your wall. Because I wanted to see if I could learn how to use stencil material and what the capabilities were with other knowledge that I have. So I did a small test run of his. I painted on a block this big. Just shrunk it down.
Okay.
And it came out pretty cool. I gave him the block, he kept it. And then he's like, all right, well, there was time in between when I could paint it and you know what I mean? There was a long stretch.
Right.
Because he had so much to do to the building. He totally re-gutted that joint.
Right.
So there was a long stretch. So after that, I was just kind of sitting around twiddling my thumbs because COVID hit and a lot of my clientele are bars and restaurants.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah. So I kind of just decided to try painting. So my first painting was vector design it was a sketch I did for Mac Lethal, actually.
Okay.
That was never used. And
that wasn't the Panda?
That was
the Pandas.
And I just thought it was cool.
Okay.
So I just was like, let me try this out. So, I mean, if you look at the Panda Bear, how it's in the center of the board.
Okay.
And it's not quite lined up, I was just testing to see if I could do it.
Right.
So I did it, and I cut it small enough where I didn't waste a lot of material, It was just probably stencils, maybe, 8 inches wide by 10 inches tall. And then cut on that blue material, and it's pretty sticky. I had to learn a lot of learning curve.
Right.
Pulling off when you don't want it to pull off, bleeding. And then after that, I was like, I don't really want to do that kind of art. I just wanted to try something that was completely outside of my norm, like that Paint Bear was,
right
in my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? So I was like, well, what about if I did some musician? And I said, well, maybe Prince. And I was just looking through pictures of Prince, and I just saw the one that had a sweet curl. And
you're talking about the curl on his
curl
forehead.
in the front, yeah. It was a side profile and the curl.
He had a sweet attitude in that one.
Yeah, and I looked at that and I visualized it in a graffiti comic book form in my brain.
So now these early influences come back and merge together,
right,
and then spill out into a unified expression, the Brando.
Right.
Okay.
And I was able to utilize all the knowledge that I've gained over the years between screen printing, vinyl production, sign production, illustration, graphic design, photography, you name it. I've tried it because
it's part of
tattooing art. Even.
It's part of our. It's part of our. It has to be part of your repertoire.
It's just living life as an artist is definitely constant learning.
Dipping your
You
hand
just
in
look
it.
into this timeline, and you look at it. That's when I learned this. That's when I learned this, and that's when I learned this, and it just progresses. And I don't know, man. I don't miss being young because I was an idiot and I wasted a lot of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I could go back to when I was 14 and said, "Listen, asshole, get it together."
You
Stop.
gotta-
Yeah, but also, dude, that's also where a lot of my pop culture comes from because I watched a shit ton of movies.
Well, and we went
Sorry
through.
for the swearing.
It's all right. We went through. I did a sweep, and I didn't even capture 10%.
Dude, it's too much.
It's and I think that's a really important recognition, self-recognition, is to say that while I would have liked to have been farther along down
Right.
this road,
Right.
there's not a single wasted experience.
No, there isn't because I've seen so many movies multiple times. I mean, ask me how many times I've seen V for Vendetta. I couldn't even count it.
Or Ghostbusters, the original.
Ghostbusters, dude.
Yeah.
I can't even count
And
it.
that's a terrible movie.
Technically, but it's
But it's
not.
a brilliant piece
It's
of.
not.
It's a brilliant
because
piece
it's.
of. I mean, they
Dude,
had
the
to do it.
'80s. The '80s were different, man.
I know they had to do it on such a short
I
time
was-
frame and a tight budget,
Yeah.
and
And I was actually friends with the guy that designed the No Ghost logo on Facebook. I never met him personally, but we had talked a few times. Michael Gross, and that his logo, if you think about it, is one of the most recognized marks in the world.
yeah. Then that's
And
a
he was a producer on it. He also did Heavy Metal Magazine, the Heavy Metal movie. But I did a earlier in my probably say when I started Upside Down Owl, my business. I started working on pop culture shirts with some dude that I befriended on Facebook or befriended through Redbubble, which is a website where you can just upload art and they'll print it and ship it for you, right? And this is like when this whole pop culture, this is right before this huge pop culture explosion, daily t-shirt sites where you can find anything and everything about any property that you might be interested in, whether it be The Office or this, or you get what I'm saying,
Right.
Parks and Rec, all that jazz. So I did a Mood Slime shirt.
Yeah.
It was for Ghostbusters 2, and I took a lot of reference from Ghostbusters 2, and it said, Spangler and Stance's psychomagnetheric mood slime, and it was all looked like an old Mrs. Winslow art, or a Mrs. Winslow like turn of the century medicine label. I tried. I tried. That was so I could do so much better now, but he saw it and he commented on it, and then I found out who he was, and it was Michael Gross, a dude that, he helped create the Terror Dogs, dude.
He's a pretty heavy hitter.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when he was like, "Oh, I love this shirt," it was like an ego boost a little bit. You know what I mean? I was like, "Oh shit,
I'm doing work that's getting recognized."
And I look at that thing now, and I've changed 50 things just to make it better.
Yeah.
But it's too late. I'm past that. I don't need to change stuff that I've already done. I just need to move forward. So I'm making a point on this pop culture thing because that time frame, there was a huge surge in artists doing pop culture t-shirts and mashup t-shirts. And I had worked with one of my buddies, and we did some stuff with tfury.com. And we did some spaceship shirts, and it made me a little bit of money, but I kind of wanted to get away from it because it's not my... I don't own Darth Vader. I'm not trying to... I don't know. They started sending out DMC letters, the DMCA, whatever the letter is, cease and desist.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I had a bunch of stuff pulled off my Redbubble, and I don't think there's hardly anything on there now.
Right.
And I was never good enough with the mashup ideas either. Like, I could never come up with the mixing Darth Vader with Pee Wee Herman and making it work. I could never do it.
Right, but that brings up an interesting point because when I did the Chewbacca piece,
Mm-hmm.
I did some research on what's legal. And obviously,
Parody is.
parody is legal.
Correct.
So if you make something, and that's what I had to do, is with that Chewbacca piece, which was a really good piece. I should have cast it.
Right.
I didn't. Well, it's not technically true. I've got a portion of it cast.
Right.
But what I should have done was, because I called that piece "Blind Allegiance," right? Talking about how Chewbacca never really had a backstory until everything came out.
Never even got a medal.
Never even got a medal. Yeah. Episode 4. Never even got a
Chewbacca
medal.
got dick.
So I ended up hollowing out his eyes.
Yeah.
And keeping the eyelids and keeping that looking like there were eyes back
Right.
there, but that was a parody, and I could get away with that.
Right.
So that opens up the door for a tremendous amount of latitude for using things, and now using property. You mentioned Darth Vader as part of your repertoire is a lot different than using pop culture icons like the ones that you're doing now, because those people, when you are a public persona and you appear in the public domain, there's no copyright
Fair
issues.
game, baby.
Yeah,
Fair game.
fair game.
And I'm not even worried about that. Honestly.
Right,
I'm
right.
not doing these. I'm doing these for me.
Right. So, but let's talk about that for a second. Let me grab the camera. Let me grab one of the cameras, and we'll go over. And let's wrap up with talking about this, because I think this is a great segue. How all this stuff came together, coalesced, and you have this watershed moment where you had time due to COVID-19.
COVID, baby.
And all of a
Dude.
sudden it opened the things up for you. And this was your first real response from your public, where you put something
Very
out that
much
was
so.
you,
Very much
and
so.
the public said, hell yeah, I want that.
Yeah. Very much so.
Oh, great. Let me grab a camera. We're going to go over and let's talk about. Okay. So this is your, well, for lack of a better word, your vinyl portion of your studio. For lack of a better descriptor.
Yeah. This is just this is where I put product. That's
Okay.
my product table.
Okay. And so which one was your first one? The pandas?
Pandas was first.
Okay.
That was the first one. Learned a lot. Learned how to do it.
And we talked about using 3 sides for registration purposes,
Right. So on my next one,
which was Prince, which is a
Prince.
sweet
it turned out
piece.
really, really good.
Yeah.
It was like almost like, like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
It just because of just the way it came out.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
yeah, so I said, the easiest way to line up these stencils, because if you look, I have white.
On all 3 edges.
Yeah, I got five stencils. I think that's a 5 stencil.
Okay.
And I use the white stencil on 3 edges. So every time I lay down, all I have to do is match up the outline. So every time. And there might be a slight variant, like 1/16 of an inch here and there, but you can't tell.
Right.
It's not
So then the next one after Prince was
Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. Which, I have to admit, at first I didn't recognize who he was, and then I had to remember
It's not
that...
my favorite one.
No, but I think that people who are Kurt Cobain people will appreciate that.
Yeah, it was mainly I painted it for my daughter's birthday.
Okay.
My wife talked me into doing Kurt Cobain next, so I did.
Okay.
And whatever. I mean, I know people like Kurt Cobain, and I like that picture. I thought it was cool. I think I might. This is the master. I might change it up. I think maybe if there was a lighter color in the bill and in here, the contrast would be better. But then you're upping your stencils. So I don't know. Man. Maybe that one is what it is. I'll do another one, Cobain number 2.
Okay. And then what came after Cobain? Prison Mike
Ice
or
Cube.
Maryland? Ice Cube.
Ice Cube was the 3rd.
Okay. That's pretty sick.
That is by far my favorite one.
He's such an iconic image. I mean, that is was that an image from around the time when
No idea.
okay.
I just like the composition. And I like to. I did Prince with no hands. It was just side profile.
Right.
Okay. Cobain had hands. I don't know. I like the hands. The hand in there. It was just the image I liked the most.
Yeah. Well, it also gets to a very, we were talking about self-fill versus blending last night, and this really has a definite comic book feel to it. I mean, because a lot of early comic books were cell-filled.
Yeah, cell shading is my jam.
Yeah, yeah.
I did it a lot in my vector work. If you look here, I did some mock-up sticker packs.
For Upside Down Owl?
For, product mock-ups. And I hand cut these out or whatever. But these are all cell shaded, but they don't really look it.
Right.
That's all cell shading in there.
Yeah.
So that's my jam. I don't really mess with gradients. I like the look of cell shading. It's definitely my favorite.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm pretty good at it.
So after Ice Cube.
Ice Cube was Prison Mike.
Okay. And then.
No. Yeah, it was Prison Mike. Marilyn Monroe was the last one I did. And that was when COVID kind of
started to break.
Everybody started getting busy. I started doing more client stuff. And then I haven't painted one since. I have a bunch of sketches in the works.
Okay.
Probably 3 or 4. I have 1,000 ideas in my head. I've had a lot of people tell me what they want to see. A lot of the 27 Club.
Yeah.
The
Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and as an artist, you have to consider, you want to do stuff that works for you, but you also want to make it marketable. I mean, it's a tricky line to balance.
Right.
It's a tricky rope to walk.
Right.
And doing something that you can maintain your artistic integrity on, and yet still feel like you're reaching an audience that is going to help support you. And so then we have these. These are all for sale, right?
These are not for sale.
Well, you can.
The reproductions are.
The reproductions are for
sale.
sale.
I'll reproduce
any of these.
I'm gonna keep one for myself, obviously. So all these masters I keep, but we can reproduce them in the 2-foot size or 1-foot size, which is smaller.
Okay.
And my wife paints all the reproductions. I just cut the material on this. This is my stencil material here.
Uh-huh.
I can actually show you here.
So before we go into the stencil material and everything, what are the prices for a 2-foot reproduction?
I don't know. A 2-foot right now is $200 and a 1-foot is $100. But that might change in the future.
But that's very, very reasonable. I mean,
it might go up.
Yeah, I mean, depending. It depends on what.
It takes quite a while.
It does take quite a while.
These.
Yeah.
It takes me about 48 hours to do the first one.
Okay.
From start, like real start to real finish.
Right. It's from blank MDF board.
No, from computer
to finish.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 48 hours. Well, that's extremely reasonable. I mean, for a limited edition run.
I'm going to do 10 24-inch.
Okay.
And 20 12-inch. And that's all I'm doing at each one of these. If I want, do a Prince number 2. And then if I want to do Prince again, I'm not going to do any variants. I'm not going to reproduce these after the fact.
That keeps exclusivity up.
Yeah.
For your clients.
It'll only be 30.
That'd be great.
If people want them,
And those are all for sale on UpsideDownOwl.com?
I'm putting a lot of things into motion. I'm putting a lot of things into motion.
And then the last thing we should talk about is you're starting a YouTube channel coming up here in the next period of time.
Yeah.
So this walks us through from, your early career up through what you're currently doing now and the traction you've gotten from an audience and where you want to go. And in your YouTube channel, you're going to be talking about various aspects of design and art and creation, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not too much. Maybe design, but not really. I'm not going to focus on client stuff.
Okay.
I think what I want my YouTube channel to be is a journey of me getting back into doing personal art, like my personal art journey, not my commercial art.
Okay.
That's really what I mean. If you can go to my website and see all my commercial stuff. There's so much logo stuff out there, video wise, tutorials. I don't think I want to focus on that. I want to focus on stuff like this and skateboard designs, t-shirt designs, you know, get back into actually drawing on paper, because I fell into a digital abyss
Yeah.
from being so digital. I mean, I love my drawing monitor that I draw on every day, but I also like falling back in love with pencil on paper.
Yeah, it's a great feel.
And but I can do quick sketches on that, and then, you know,
Yeah.
clean them up digitally. I mean,
So I think that's a great thing, because people, you know, it's going to help educate the audience about the life of the artist. It's not,
right.
you know, we don't. It's a really, really difficult, challenging thing. One of the things that I hear a lot is, "Oh, you must be lucky to do the thing you love to do." It's like, well, if you understood, you'd realize how much torment there really is.
oh, dude.
Yeah, it's a painful journey, and you have to be a bit of a warrior to muscle through it.
It's like, I mean, I hustle any kind of art I can.
Yeah.
Any kind I can. Anything that will put food in my kids.
Bellies. Yeah, they're growing bellies.
I mean, anything that pays the bills. Like,
Yeah.
you have to. And, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, so I think that'll be great. People will watch the evolution.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to doing my thing.
Yeah.
You know, and if the country ever opens back up, you know, I want to start doing conventions with my buddy Adam.
And that's
I
where you're
want to
gonna
tag along
and
take
bring these with.
stencils. Me and the wife were talking about painting, you know, pre-painting 12-inch ones, because we can take a lot of those.
Huge amount of
So
those.
if we have, you know,
3,
10
4.
of each of 20
Dude.
different paintings.
That pays for your convention and puts bread in the
Yeah, I mean,
family's belly
so-
for a month.
And I'll film that whole journey, man.
There,
'cause
there you go.
This is
And
what I
that's-
want to do.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I really want to thank you for taking time today.
You got it, dude.
All right. Here, do me a favor. Film that. So, thanks for watching. We're down here in Brando's studio. I love his work. I have a great appreciation for it. And I've watched him grow, you know, from a kid all the way up. And then when we started doing the art thing, and I had no idea this was in his future. And it's kind of blown me away. And he's bringing all these things together into his new expression. And I'm excited for this next chapter. So I'm going to put up his YouTube channel and his website and the links in the description below. But thanks for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share. That's how small channels grow. And until next time, be well, be good to each other, and be productive.